Angela Yee, and excited to have Marvin Bing here with me. How you feeling today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Ange.
A real change maker?
Sometimes.
No, all the
All the
time.
time.
All the time. We got to
All the
own
time.
it. And we're getting ready for the Just Us Idea Summit Ideas Week. So tell us about that first and foremost.
So Just Us Ideas Week is a little platform I created.
Not a little platform.
Not a little
Stop
platform.
doing that. Okay.
After last year's elections, I sort of had like one of the man in the mirror moments. A lot of my career has been behind the scenes. A lot of things you've seen around social movements, I've had a hand in, over the course of the last 15 or so years.
Even an EP you had.
Even the EP.
Yeah. We'll talk about that in a second.
So I wanted to get back to sort of my roots, right? I mean, a lot of these social issues are near and dear to my heart, but, I'm a product of the foster care system. Met my father in jail for the first time. My mother was killed when I was 4. So I wanted to get back to those communities, and I felt like, sometimes in social justice and advocacy, you can get so torn away from your roots to focus on other issues, and they're important, but I made a decision in January that this is going to be my legacy, and this is what I'm going to work on.
Because a lot of times people are advocating for things that matter the most to them.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of people who aren't represented in that space, and a lot of people who also feel like they don't have a voice. No one cares about them. They feel forgotten. And those are the most important people to advocate for and to strategize with, because sometimes people feel like even voting doesn't matter.
True story. I mean, even one of our cornerstones of our platform is, we have a president who is a convicted felon. What does that mean for all the people in America who have a felony record that can't run for office and can't even vote, right? So even the stuff that we're doing is like, how does that translate into policy change in states that are still punishing people who have been in prison when it comes to voting, or again, running for public office? If he can do it, anyone should be able to do it. Right?
Anybody should be able to, right? Yeah. He's been changing a lot of the rules when it comes to, because it's interesting to me, because we talk about like laws are created for a reason. There's a system of checks and balances for a reason, and everything that's been happening makes it seem like you can just do whatever you want. It's a free-for-all. We do see some things getting challenged, right? But the average person is like, how do I play a role in any of this?
Exactly, and that's what Just Us Ideas Week is a platform for average people who've been through these systems that are said on paper help to rehabilitate, support, and guide, but oftentimes we know it causes more trauma, more destruction, it separates us from our families. So we're trying to bring everyone together that's been impacted by the criminal legal system to really just have a moment of, you're not alone, we're in this together, and really attack and focus our collective energy and collective power to building something monumental that this country really hasn't seen in terms of a united front.
What are some things that you've seen just from last year, just some strategic things that you saw implemented after the summit last year?
Last year, I mean, honestly, there's been minor changes in certain states. And I get this question a lot in terms of like, well, what are you actually building toward? What is all this for? And for me, it's simple. I want to create the AARP for people who've been in prison. I want to create like a labor union for people who've been in prison, right? Like, what's our space? Like, what's a space where if you've been impacted by any of these systems, really, where you could come and get the same type of advocacy, services, protection, defense, legal support that all these other groups always maintain, NRA, right? You ever see anyone attack the NRA and what happens after that attack? Here they come.
Yeah.
It should be the same thing for people who've been in the system. We should have a structure and some sort of like entity that you attack one, you attack all.
Right.
And that's exactly what we're trying to build toward.
Oh, I love that. And I want to talk more about you returning back to your roots and to where this all started. So give us more information about what life was like for you as a...
I mean, it was tough. Like, and I hate that my story is not an anomaly. Plenty of young people are going through that right now. Not having a mom around, not having daddy around, going from one home to another. I've been in so many foster homes. I know every religion like the back of my hand. I've been with a Catholic family, Jewish family, Seventh-day Adventist, Baptist, Muslim, and I'm and I guess there's always a blessing in storms, right? So I see the value of God putting me through those situations to make me who I am now. But I mean, it's tough. I mean, the trauma, really anger. I wouldn't say trauma. The anger that I've carried most of my life, just because I never had that moment where I fall off my bike and I could say, Mom, right? Or, my dad's at my basketball game when I'm in elementary school, middle school. Sadly, you learn to live with it, right? After a certain point, and I went through that process. I mean, I had therapists and, sometimes in the group homes I was in, because in foster care, you got to wait to be placed, right? So you could be in like a group home for like 6 months to a year, right? If no family accepts you, you could be in a group home for mad long. Group home is like jail. Like, motherfuckers stealing your shit. You got to fight for your shit.
Right.
Like, food. You really go to school. They sit you in a room, just watch TV all
And
fucking
you're young.
day. And you're young dealing with this, right? And there's so many other people sharing the same story. So I went through that. I think around 12, 13 years old was the first time I was arrested. So I got arrested inside of a foster care placement. So I went right into the system at that point, the juvenile justice system, straight from the foster care system, right? And I did 6 years in and out of juvie. I did one sentence I did a year and a half at a juvenile detention facility called St. Gabriel's Hall. I came back to Philly for like a month, got rearrested for possession, and I went away for 2 years. I actually graduated out of a court adjudicated juvenile facility. No prom, no none of that, right? None of that high school experience, none of that, the shit normal people do during that time. But I mean, the thing about me, I've always been a go-getter. So even in juvie detention, I used to write coaches' letters. I used to write basketball coaches' letters. And they send a generic letter back. Like, I used to walk around my jaw, look at the coach, he hit me back. And, it's just an automated letter. But even in those moments of like unpredictability, trauma, all that, I still was like, I'm determined to figure out a way out of this. And thank God when I got out, and when I was 18, my dad was just coming out of prison. So he actually came out of prison. And while he was in prison, and this is the beauty of it all, this is the beauty in the struggle, he became an activist while he was in prison.
Wow, okay.
He started writing the city council president, John Street at the time, letters about what to do with returning citizens. So the council president, John Street, was actually about to run for mayor of Philly.
I remember that, Mayor John Street.
So he was about to run for mayor. My dad got out right when he announced his campaign for mayor. He took my dad under the wing,
That's
brought him
amazing.
on the campaign, and then my dad became the first inaugural executive director of the Philadelphia Office of Reentry for Ex-Offenders. It's the first of its kind in the country at the time. A lot of cities have adopted that model by opening up city-level offices that focus on returning citizens, but my father was the first one, and John Street was the first mayor.
Wow. I love that story because that really does show that there are changes that can be made
For sure.
when you can get active in community. Because I think a lot of times people don't like how the system works,
For sure.
but they're also not participating in doing things to help bring about change. And
Absolutely.
whether that means advocating for somebody who's running for office or who you think would be a great leader
Right.
or coming up with ideas, and that's what's going to happen at Just
Right.
Us Ideas,
Absolutely.
is to be able to kick it and come up with ideas of things that we can do when we come together.
Absolutely.
And, the fact that bills can get passed, laws can get made
Right.
that can be beneficial. Local politics is so important. At a time like now, we're paying so much attention to everything that Donald Trump is saying and
Right.
doing, but what's happening on the local level matters
right.
a lot to us in our everyday
That's right.
lives.
And that's one of the things that we want to definitely make sure exists in our Just Us Idea space is the average person that's formerly incarcerated in Massachusetts, I mean, barring their parole, probation, et cetera, their situation, we want to make sure they're connected to the folks in Jersey,
Right.
to the folks in Pennsylvania, to the folks in Delaware, Virginia, Texas, wherever they may be, to just build that community amongst themselves too. I was just talking to my good brother Nick Turner from Vera, and we talked about how advocacy and social justice has now become so high level, almost like a luxury at a point where the people on the ground don't get connected and they
Yeah.
aren't communicating because it's just, I'm the ED of this organization or I'm this person and then I'm this influencer that's fighting for the movement. We got to always remember the people on the ground, the people that have no public voice, the people don't maybe afraid or not know how to use their voice from their lived experience to get active in their own communities around these issues because it's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? It's not an anomaly. So
It's interesting because, since Philly's on the table here, I'm just seeing how Meek Mill brought a lot of attention to somebody like a Michael Rubin who would have never understood or realized how the justice system can be against you and
That's
how,
right.
he got set up by dirty, like just things like that,
Right.
that the white man might never have experienced or
Right.
have known anybody that's gone through that. And then something like that could be a catalyst for people to be like, well, damn, maybe it's not like, because sometimes I think people look at, they could have seen you as a kid in and out of, oh, he's
That happens.
Yeah, and it does happen, and how does that make you feel about yourself too as a kid when other people are putting this stigma on you when it's really like fighting for survival and trying to figure it out without the direction that you need or the luxury of having role models around.
Absolutely,
and resources.
The good, I guess the sad good thing about it all is that I've always grew up as a cultural kid, so I paid attention to the local drug dealers. I paid attention to the local hood legends. And, my dad was, at the time, one of those people. So even in his absence, it was like I glorified this figure that I didn't really connect with growing up, but I knew he existed, right? So, we pick our leaders, right, for good or for bad. But I want to go back to one point you just said because I don't want to miss it. The stigma that we carry, like young people that experience foster care, young people that end up in juvenile detention, even adults who end up in prison, right? It's a real thing that people look at them a certain way and then they treat them and judge them based off of that experience. And I'm thinking about, like, you asked me how I felt. Like, I even deal with that shit as an adult in the movement, right? There's people who's like, oh, he was in foster care, he was locked up, well, his dad was locked up, his mom got, Again, you see these certain characters and people and organizations that some do a great job, but it's really judgmental at times too. So even someone like me who's always been behind the scenes doing this type of shit, I'm nervous as hell, right?
Well, you don't seem like it, yeah.
Well, you make it comfortable, so thank you for that. But, there's people who will hear the story and then, oh, we didn't know that, sadly, but it's fuel for me. Like, I think, again, I'm fighting for something bigger than all of that. There's people looking at me to pave the way and kick the door down so they can walk through it, and that's just what I'm doing.
I want to ask you this, too. Why do you think celebrity is important? Because some people will be like, who cares about celebrities? They don't know anything about politics. Some celebrities will even feel like, I don't want to be involved in the mix of that because I want everybody to want to support me and buy my music, so I'm not taking a stance on that because I don't want to isolate certain groups of people. I want to know why you think, because you did put out an EP that you put together with some amazing artists who are, but I understand the importance of it and the voice that people can have, but I want to hear from you, like what you see when it comes to celebrities and advocating.
Well, I think if you look at my career and how I use celebrity, I'm always tapping into the celebrities I feel are like the street's prophets, right? So there's different layers to celebrity. There's different genres of celebrity. For me, I feel like a Beanie Siegel speaks more to what's going on in the street than, no disrespect, John Legend, right? I'm not taking John Legend into a prison. I'm just not. I don't think they get nothing out of it. And I get it, goodwill, your heart, empathy, support. I get all that. But you take Gucci Mane and Beans in a prison. One, they've been in prison. They streets heroes. They talking about the everyday life that's happening for people that's still living in crazy conditions. Some intentional, some unintentional. I think the connection in the relationships is just more of a connective tissue, right? So I do think it's important to use those folks. Even on the EP, who would have thought Benny the Butcher would be on the EP talking about some positive shit, right? I did, right? And it's like the amount of people who listen to that and like, oh shit. Or like, when last time you heard Jay Electronica? I went and got him out of wherever he was hiding.
He just
and like, bro.
He loves Philly.
Loves Philly. But again, like, you put him on there with Freeway, with Black Thought. Who sees that coming?
Right.
But the people who get it and got it. So maybe it's not for everybody, but it's definitely for the people who actually tuned in and supported that. It was for them.
What do you think about artists and celebrities who feel like, I don't want to really be involved in politics at all?
I think they're scared. Stop being scared. Because we oftentimes forget where we come from. And maybe they're so far removed that they don't get to go back to the neighborhoods they come from.
Right.
But people still there. And they're still struggling. Just like at one point they may have. So we can't get so far removed that we can't speak up for the shit that we see every day. I mean, I know celebrities whose family members are going through shit. And they're like, I ain't saying nothing.
Right.
How?
Right. Yeah, how do you not?
How do you not? Because you're scared to lose a check?
How much patience do you have to deal with certain people and answering? Like, I remember I was at a bar. This woman was like, this drunk white lady was like, and this was when Black Lives Matter was at an all-time high. She was like, I don't understand this Black Lives Matter thing.
My response would have been crazy, but I ain't gonna say that here.
But, sometimes, and I get that, right? Because sometimes you could figure you could go and do some research yourself
For sure.
if you don't understand it.
For sure.
But sometimes having a conversation with somebody can also change your mind about
For
things.
sure.
But sometimes we don't have the patience to want to have to talk to each individual.
I mean, I think social
not
media,
trying to do the work themselves.
I think social media has contributed to that lack of patience for our society in general. But even the beauty about Just Us Ideas is one of the things that is such a unifying thing. Mm-hmm. It's not a race issue. It's not a social economic issue. It's not a cultural divide religious issue. You got billionaires, millionaires, thousandaires, hundredaires, motherfuckers in poverty, people who aren't even in poverty, below poverty, that has this issue of being in the prison system, coming home, struggling, trying to figure out a way out. Right? White, black, indigenous, Native American, Hispanic. Everyone's dealing with the same issue. So even the beauty of this movement from this struggle is one of those clarion unifying things that just levitates beyond any cultural barrier that exists.
What can people expect from Just Us Ideas Week?
Energy, a recommitment to collaboration, an ego-less, selfless clarion call to get active, to do it together, and to recognize their own power. Mm-hmm. We are the power. No one should be elected in this country without going through people who've experienced the justice system.
Right.
And if we band together as a collective, ain't no stop. What's the song? Ain't no stopping us now. So yeah.
I remember you had the former mayor Kwame Kilpatrick.
Oh yeah, he coming back. It's my guy.
Is? Okay.
It's my guy. It's my guy.
Oh
it's my
man,
guy.
listen.
I got some Detroit ties. My cousin was an elected official out there.
Okay.
So I'm always in Detroit. Love Detroit. Kwame, I've known Kwame since I was a youngin'. His whole family, Carolyn, Kwame.
Oh yeah, because you had Hill Harpy there too.
Yeah, Hill was there.
Yeah.
But
what are your thoughts about running for office?
Nah, that ain't my twist. I talk too much shit. But not only that though. Nah.
You sure?
I'm positive.
Okay.
I'm positive. I mean, I've had thoughts about it. I mean, my dad used to try to hype me. You should be this. You should be that. And I thought about it, but I think a lot of people that get elected, they lose their soul because they have to compromise so much to get crumbs. And I don't want to ever be in a position where I have to compromise the sake of the people I'm saying I'm committed to loving and fighting for to play that game with them.
You think you'll get a lot more done working from the outside of
Absolutely.
That? Okay. And where can people go to sign up if they want to come to
JustUsideas.org is free. Be in the building.
I'll be there.
Yes, you will. We got to talk about that. Definitely excited to have you there. But it's free. Get active. Follow us on social media. Just Us Ideas on Instagram. If you have a relative, friend, family, you know somebody, you went to school, live in your block, your community that's been incarcerated, they got somebody currently incarcerated that has a relative in foster care, anyone been in juvenile detention, tap in. This is for us, for real.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I will be there. We'll talk about
which
capacity.
We're
going to figure out but I'm definitely going to be there, and I'm excited. I'm excited, and thank you, and I appreciate you and the work that you're doing.
Thank you for this.
Way up.